The crystalline spires of the Delphian High Council chamber stretched toward the violet sky, their surfaces refracting the light of 3 setting suns. Narakathy stood before the assembled council members, her iridescent scales dulled by exhaustion and stress. The past 3 cycles of interrogation had left her mentally drained, but her resolve remained unbroken. "You persist in this defiance." First Speaker Velthera's voice resonated through the chamber, each word carrying the weight of generations of Delphian authority. "The humans are barely beyond their planetary bounds. They are chaotic, unpredictable, and dangerous. Your research could have given us the means to contain them." Nera lifted her chin, meeting the first speaker's gaze. "My work was meant to advance our understanding of quantum mechanics, not create weapons of mass destruction. The humans may be young, but they have shown remarkable progress in a mere fraction of our development time. They deserve the chance to grow without our interference." The council chamber erupted in murmurs, the sound like crystal chimes in a storm. Nera's scales rippled with anxiety, but she maintained her composure. She had known the consequences of her choice when she destroyed her research data rather than let it be weaponized against humanity. "You were our most promising quantum theorist," second speaker Myrtel said, his tone heavy with disappointment. "Your betrayal of our trust cannot go unpunished, yet your achievements have earned you some mercy." First speaker Velthera raised a hand for silence. "Narakathy, you are hereby stripped of your rank and position within the Scientific Academy. Rather than permanent imprisonment, you will be exiled to observe those you chose to protect. Perhaps living among the humans will show you the error of your judgment." Nera's heartlights flickered with shock. Exile among humans. It was a punishment designed to humiliate, to force her to witness firsthand the primitive nature of the species she had defended. Yet beneath her dismay, a spark of curiosity flickered. She had studied humans from afar, but to actually live among them. The journey to Earth was spent in isolation aboard an automated transport vessel. Nera used the time to study the colony that would be her new home, New Haven, one of humanity's most remote outposts. Located in the Rocky Mountains of the North American continent, it had been established as a self-sustaining research station and agricultural center. The humans there were developing new techniques for survival in harsh conditions, preparing for deeper space exploration. As the transport descended through Earth's atmosphere, Nera observed the sprawling settlement below. Unlike the elegant crystalline architecture of Delphian cities, New Haven was a practical arrangement of reinforced structures, greenhouse domes, and energy collection arrays. The surrounding mountains wore caps of white snow, and vast forests stretched into the distance. The landing pad was occupied by a small welcoming committee, 3 humans in practical environmental suits. Nera's transport touched down with precise efficiency, and the airlock cycled to Earth-normal atmosphere. She took her first breath of alien air, grateful that at least the atmospheric composition was compatible with Delphian physiology. "Welcome to New Haven," said the central figure, stepping forward and removing her helmet to reveal close-cropped gray hair and dark skin lined with age and weather. "I'm Director Sarah Chen. We were informed of your arrival and situation. While this is primarily a human colony, we have some experience with extraterrestrial visitors." Nera inclined her head in the formal Delphian greeting. "I am Narakathy. I appreciate your hospitality, though I understand it is not by choice." Her translator implant rendered her complex harmonic speech into standard English. "Everyone contributes here," Director Chen said firmly. "Your scientific background could be valuable to our research if you're willing to work with us. Marcus," she gestured to a younger man with features similar to her own, "will show you to your quarters and help you get oriented." Marcus Chen stepped forward, his expression openly curious. "Your arrival is actually well-timed. We're preparing for the spring planting season, and we could use someone with advanced knowledge of biological systems." Nera felt a flutter of surprise. She had expected to be treated as an unwelcome burden, yet they were already looking for ways to utilize her expertise. "I would be interested in learning about your agricultural methods," she said carefully, though I should warn you that I am not permitted to share advanced Elfian technology. We're not asking for your secrets, Marcus replied with a slight smile. Just your observations and insights. Sometimes a fresh perspective is all we need to solve a problem. As they walked through the colony, Nera studied her new home with growing fascination. The structures were indeed simpler than Delphian architecture, but she could see the careful thought behind their design. Everything served multiple purposes, from the solar-collecting windows to the vertical gardens along the walkways. The original colony was established 15 years ago, Marcus explained as they walked. We've expanded significantly since then, but we still face challenges. Our biggest issue is maintaining food production through the winter months. The greenhouse systems help, but we're always looking for ways to improve efficiency. Nera observed the humans they passed, noting their varied appearances and casual interactions. There was none of the rigid hierarchy she was accustomed to in Delphian society. Your people seem very adaptable, she said. Marcus laughed. We have to be. Earth's changing climate forced us to develop new ways to survive. This colony is part of that adaptation, learning to build sustainable communities in harsh conditions. The knowledge we gain here will help when we establish colonies on other worlds. They reached a residential section, and Marcus led her to a small but comfortable apartment. It's not exactly luxury accommodation, he said apologetically, but we've tried to make it comfortable for Delphian physiology. The environmental controls are adjustable, and there's a meditation space with proper lighting for your species' rest cycle. Nera was touched by the consideration. This is more than adequate. I thank you. Get settled in, Marcus said. Tomorrow, I'll show you around the agricultural complex if you're interested. Maybe you can tell us what we're doing right, at least from a scientific perspective. After he left, Nera stood at the window, watching the sunset paint the mountain peaks in colors that reminded her of home. She had expected her exile to be an exercise in enduring primitive conditions among a primitive people. Instead, she found herself intrigued by their resourcefulness and their willingness to accept her despite knowing she was in exile. Perhaps, she thought as her scales shifted to match the evening colors, there was more to learn here than the council had intended. They had meant this assignment as punishment, but Nera was beginning to see it as an opportunity to understand the species she had chosen to protect. Whether that understanding would validate or challenge her decision remained to be seen. As night fell over New Haven, Nera began her evening meditation ritual, her scales glowing softly in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new experiences, new challenges, and perhaps new insights into these fascinating humans who had built a home in the shadow of mountains beneath an alien sky. Dawn broke over New Haven with a symphony of human activity. Nara watched from her window as workers moved purposefully through the streets, preparing for another day of maintaining humanity's foothold in this harsh environment. After a week in the colony, she was beginning to understand their constant motion. Survival here required perpetual vigilance and effort. The morning light caught her reflection in the window, her scales automatically shifting to match the pale golden hues of sunrise. She had maintained her Delphian appearance despite the colony's offer of more human-appropriate clothing. Some barriers she wasn't ready to cross. A chime at her door announced Marcus's arrival. "Ready for your first day in the greenhouses?" he asked, his breathing slightly labored from climbing the stairs. Nara had noticed humans often showed such physical signs of exertion, so different from her own species' careful conservation of energy. "I have reviewed your agricultural databases," she said, following him down the corridor. "Your methods are interesting." She hesitated, searching for the right words. "You compensate for technological limitations with surprising innovations." Marcus grinned. Was that almost a compliment? "You're adapting faster than expected." His easy humor still caught her off guard. Delphians rarely engaged in such casual banter. The agricultural complex sprawled across several acres, a maze of interconnected greenhouse domes and hydroponic towers. Teams of workers moved between the structures, tending to the vast array of plants that kept the colony fed. The morning sun transformed the domes into gleaming bubbles of life against the mountain backdrop. Our biggest challenge is the soil, Marcus explained as they entered the main research greenhouse. The local earth is too mineral-heavy for most crops. We've been experimenting with different enrichment techniques, but progress is slow. Nara studied the rows of plants, her specialized vision detecting subtle variations in their health. Your fungal networks are inefficient, she observed. The mycelium strands are not properly distributed. You can see that? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. We've been trying to optimize our soil microbiome, but it's largely trial and error. My species evolved from creatures that could detect biochemical patterns, Nara explained, then caught herself. She wasn't supposed to share details about Delphian biology. But Marcus showed no sign of trying to exploit her knowledge, only honest interest. "Show me what you see," he said, handing her a tablet. "Draw it if you can't explain it." Over the next few hours, Nara found herself deeply engaged in analyzing the greenhouse systems. The humans' approach was fundamentally different from Delphian agricultural methods, but she began to see the logic behind their choices. They worked with natural processes rather than trying to control them completely, creating resilient systems that could adapt to changing conditions. "Your people understand symbiosis better than I expected," she admitted as they took a break in the greenhouse's control room. "These plant combinations support each other's growth. We learned the hard way that trying to force nature to conform to our plans usually backfires," Marcus said, offering her a container of water. "Better to work with it than against it." A commotion outside drew their attention. One of the secondary greenhouse's environmental systems was malfunctioning, its temperature rapidly rising to dangerous levels. Without thinking, Nara rushed to help. Her enhanced vision could detect the failing components more quickly than human eyes. "The primary coolant loop is blocked," she called out, tracing the problem to its source. "There's mineral buildup in the exchange manifold." Marcus was already moving, tools in hand. "Can you guide me to it? This system's layout is a nightmare." Working together, they managed to clear the blockage before any crops were damaged. Nara found herself impressed by Marcus's quick thinking and mechanical skill, while he praised her ability to diagnose the problem so quickly. It was the first time they had truly collaborated as equals. "Not bad for primitive technology, huh?" Marcus said as they finally sat down to rest. Nara's scales flickered with embarrassment. "I may have been hasty in my initial assessment of human capabilities." "High praise indeed," he laughed. "You know, you're not what I expected either. The reports we get about Delphians make you sound like living computers. All logic, no flexibility." "That is how we prefer to be seen," Nara admitted. "Emotional display is considered undignified." Yet she had noticed how the humans' emotional openness often led to faster problem-solving and stronger community bonds. As the days passed, Nara found herself increasingly involved in the colony's operations. Her knowledge of biochemistry helped improve crop yields, while her ability to detect subtle environmental changes proved invaluable for maintaining the delicate balance within the greenhouses. The humans began to seek her out not just for her expertise, but for her perspective on their challenges. She also found herself drawn to their community gatherings. Shared meals, music performances, and evening discussions where colonists shared stories of Earth's past and dreams of humanity's future among the stars. It was during one such evening that she truly began to understand the difference between her people and humans. "We're not just surviving here," an elderly botanist named Elena was saying, her weathered face animated in the lamplight. "We're learning how to live in harmony with new environments, how to build communities that can thrive anywhere. Each challenge we overcome teaches us something valuable for the future." Nara looked around the room, seeing the pride and purpose in every face. These humans didn't view their technological limitations as weaknesses, but as opportunities to innovate. Their solutions might not be as elegant as Delphian technology, but they were robust, adaptable, and born from a deep understanding of natural systems. Later that night, Marcus found her in the observation dome, watching the stars. credit for your thoughts?" he asked, using one of the human idioms she was slowly learning to appreciate. "I am beginning to understand why the Council fears humanity," she said softly. "Not because you are primitive, but because you are unpredictable. You take what others would see as weaknesses and turn them into strengths. You embrace change instead of fearing it. Is that really so frightening? To a society built on stability and control?" "Yes." Nara's scales rippled with the complexity of her emotions. "But perhaps it is something we need to learn from, not fear." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering her words. "You know, when we heard we were getting a Delphian exile, everyone expected you to be arrogant and uncooperative. Instead, you've shown more willingness to adapt than anyone anticipated." "Perhaps that is why I was exiled," Nara said, surprised by her own honesty. "I never quite fit the Delphian ideal. I asked too many questions, considered too many possibilities." "Sounds like you might have a bit of human in you after all," Marcus teased. Nara's scales flushed with color at his words, but she didn't deny them. She was changing, learning to see strength in flexibility rather than just in control. The Council had sent her here to understand human weakness, but instead she was discovering human strength, and perhaps her own as well. As she retired to her quarters that night, Nara realized that her exile might be teaching her more than the Council had intended. She was learning not just about humans, but about herself, about the possibility of finding middle ground between Delphian order and human adaptability. The question was, what would she do with these insights when her exile eventually ended? The emergency alert pierced the pre-dawn quiet of New Haven, its harsh tone drawing Nara from her meditation. She was already moving when Marcus's voice came through the comm system, tense but controlled. "All senior staff to the command center immediately. This is not a drill." Nara hurried through the corridors, her scales darkening with concern. In the 3 months since she'd begun working with the colony's agricultural division, she'd never heard that edge in Marcus's voice. The command center was already crowded when she arrived. Director Chen stood before the main display, her face illuminated by the swirling patterns of a solar weather map. Marcus caught Nara's eye and motioned her over. "Our long-range sensors picked it up an hour ago," he explained quietly. "A massive coronal mass ejection headed straight for Earth. Well, look." Nara studied the data, her specialized vision processing the patterns faster than human eyes could. What she saw made her heart lights flicker with alarm. This wasn't just a solar storm. It was a monster, larger than anything in Earth's recorded history. "The magnetic pulse will hit us in approximately 72 hours, Director Chen announced to the room. "Current projections suggest it will overwhelm our standard electromagnetic shielding. We need options, people." Nara's mind raced. She knew of Delphian technologies that could protect against such storms. She had helped to design some of them. But sharing that knowledge would violate the terms of her exile. She remained silent as the humans began proposing solutions. "We could try to boost power to the shield generators," one engineer suggested. "Not enough," Marcus replied, shaking his head. "Even at maximum output, they won't handle a storm this size. We need something new." "What about moving essential equipment into the mountain bunkers?" another staff member offered. "The rock would provide natural shielding." "There isn't time to relocate everything," Director Chen said. "And the greenhouses can't be moved at all. If we lose them," she didn't need to finish the thought. "Without the agricultural systems, the colony wouldn't survive." Nara felt the weight of their concern, saw it in their faces and postures. These humans had built something remarkable here, a testament to their species' resilience and ingenuity. To watch it all be destroyed by a natural phenomenon they couldn't control. "There might be a way," she said softly, then louder. "There might be a way to protect the colony." All eyes turned to her. Director Chen's expression was carefully neutral. "Go on. My people have developed methods for deflecting solar radiation on a massive scale. The principles are not entirely beyond current human technology." Nara chose her words carefully. I cannot share the specific designs, but I could help you adapt your existing systems to achieve a similar effect. That would violate your exile conditions, wouldn't it? Marcus asked, though his tone held no judgment. Yes. Nara's scales rippled with the complexity of her emotions. The council was clear that I am to observe only, not interfere. But they also charged me to learn about humanity, and I have learned that you value action over observation when lives are at stake. Director Chen studied her for a long moment. What would you need? Access to your shield generator schematics, a team of your best engineers. And Nara's scales flushed slightly. Trust. You have mine, Marcus said immediately. Mine as well, Director Chen nodded. But understand that if you do this, there may be consequences from your people. There will definitely be consequences, Nara corrected. But perhaps they are consequences I need to accept. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Nara worked closely with the engineering team, carefully guiding them towards solutions that walked the line between human and Delphian technology. She couldn't give them the advanced quantum field manipulators her people used, but she could help them modify their existing electromagnetic shields to create a similar effect. Marcus proved invaluable, his intuitive understanding of engineering principles helping bridge the gap between what Nara knew and what she could safely share. They worked in seamless partnership, each building on the other's ideas. It's fascinating, he said during a rare break, both of them exhausted but unwilling to stop. The way you think about energy fields, it's so different from our approach, but it makes perfect sense once you explain it. Your people have laid the groundwork for these discoveries already, Nara replied. You just needed a slightly different perspective to see the possibilities. As they worked, Nara found herself sharing more than just technical knowledge. She told Marcus about growing up on her homeworld, about the rigid expectations that had shaped her life. He, in turn, shared stories of Earth's history, of how humanity had learned to face challenges by working together. Your people fear our chaos, he said thoughtfully, but they don't see that it's our greatest strength. We try things, we fail, we learn, we adapt. It's messy, but it works. I am beginning to understand that, Nara admitted. There is wisdom in your apparent disorder. With less than 10 hours remaining before the storm hit, they finally completed the modifications. The new shield design was a hybrid of human and Delphian principles, using the colony's existing technology in ways its creators had never imagined. Will it work? Director Chen asked as they ran the final diagnostics. The simulations are positive, Nara said, but there are many variables we cannot predict. This storm is unprecedented. Story of human history, Marcus smiled grimly, facing the unprecedented with untested solutions. But we're still here. As the first waves of the solar storm began to wash over Earth's magnetosphere, creating spectacular auroras in the night sky, Nara stood with the humans in the command center. She felt a strange mixture of fear and pride. Fear of what her actions might mean for her future, pride in what they had accomplished together. Whatever happens, Marcus said quietly beside her, "Thank you for trying." Nara's scales glowed softly in response, a Delphian expression of deep emotion that she no longer tried to hide. I could not stand aside and watch your work be destroyed, not when I could help. The main display showed the storm approaching, a wall of charged particles and magnetic energy that would either prove their success or spell disaster for New Haven. As the readings climbed toward critical levels, Nara found herself doing something very un-Delphian. She hoped. The first wave of the solar storm hit New Haven like an invisible tsunami. Instruments screamed as radiation levels spiked, and the modified shields hummed with unprecedented power. Nara's scales flickered rapidly as she processed the incoming data, her specialized vision tracking energy patterns the human instruments could barely detect. Shield integrity at 87% and holding, Marcus reported, his fingers dancing across the control interface. Power consumption is high but within predicted parameters. Director Chen stood at the center of the command room, her calm presence anchoring the nervous energy of her staff. Status of the greenhouse systems. Environmental controls are stable, Alina reported from her station. The plants show no signs of stress yet. Nera analyzed the shield harmonics, making minute adjustments to maintain the delicate balance between human and Delphian technology. The hybrid system was performing better than she had dared to hope, but the worst was yet to come. Main wave approaching, she announced, her translator struggling to convey the urgency in her harmonic speech. Impact in 3 minutes. Marcus moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could sense the elevated heat of his human body. Any last-minute adjustments we should make? No. Nera's scales rippled with determination. The system must now prove itself. The waiting was the hardest part. Decades of Delphian training had taught Nera to suppress emotional responses, to face challenges with pure logic. But these past months among humans had changed her. She found herself experiencing their anticipation, their fear, their hope. When the main wave hit, it was like nothing in Earth's recorded history. The sky erupted in impossible colors as charged particles collided with the atmosphere. The shield barrier became visible to the naked eye, a shimmering dome of energy, protecting the colony from the solar onslaught. Shield integrity dropping. Marcus called out, 70%, 65. Nera's fingers flew across her console, implementing fail-safes she had built into the system. Rerouting power from secondary systems. We need to maintain the resonance pattern. Around them, equipment sparked and failed as the electromagnetic pulse penetrated the outer layers of their defenses. The lights flickered, then stabilized as backup systems engage. 50% shield integrity, Marcus reported grimly. If it drops below 40, we'll lose containment. Director Chen's voice cut through the tension. How long until the wave passes? 7 minutes at current velocity, Nera answered. She hesitated, then added, I can strengthen the shield, but it would require accessing restricted Delphian principles. The Council would consider it a severe violation. It's your choice. Director Chen said quietly. We won't ask you to. I already chose. Nera interrupted, her scales glowing with intensity. When I decided to help, I accepted the consequences. Her fingers moved in complex patterns across the console as she implemented protocols that no human had ever seen. The shield's energy signature changed, becoming more coherent, more elegant. Shield integrity began to stabilize, then slowly climb. 60%, 65, 70%. Marcus read out, wonder in his voice. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Nera didn't respond, her focus entirely on maintaining the incredibly complex field harmonics. She was pushing the hybrid system far beyond its designed limits, using her knowledge of quantum mechanics to hold together technologies that should not have been compatible. The minutes stretched like hours as the solar storm raged around them. In the greenhouse monitors, they could see the plants swaying in artificial wind as environmental systems struggled to compensate for the massive energy fluctuations. Finally, gradually, the readings began to decrease. The worst of the storm had passed. Shield integrity holding at 75%, Marcus announced, relief evident in his voice. We're going to make it. The command center erupted in cheers and embraces, very human responses to survival that Nera was surprised to find herself sharing. Her scales glowed with joy and pride as Marcus impulsively hugged her. I don't care what your council says, he whispered. What you did today was remarkable. The next few hours were spent assessing damage and stabilizing systems. The colony had survived largely intact, a few burned-out circuits, some minor structural damage, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. The greenhouses, most importantly, were completely unharmed. As the crisis atmosphere faded, Nera felt the weight of what she had done settle over her. She had not just bent the rules of her exile. She had shattered them. The technical knowledge she had shared could advance human shield technology by decades. Director Chen found her in the observation dome that evening, watching the last traces of aurora fade from the sky. The Council will recall me, Nera said without preamble. My actions cannot be ignored. We'll speak in your defense, the director offered. Explain that you acted to save lives. They will not see it that way. Nera's scales shifted to darker colors. To them, I have given humans access to knowledge they are not ready for. The fact that it saved lives will be considered irrelevant. Then they understand even less about humanity than they think. Director Chen's voice was firm. You saw a problem and chose to help solve it, regardless of the personal cost. That's one of the most human things you could have done. Nera turned to face her, surprise rippling through her scales. You consider my actions human. I consider them right, Chen replied simply. Human, Delphian. Maybe the differences aren't as important as we all thought. Later that night, Nera found Marcus still working in the engineering lab, analyzing data from the shield system's performance. What you did with the shields, he said as she entered. It shouldn't have been possible. We didn't have the theoretical framework for that kind of field manipulation. You were closer than you knew, Nera replied. Your scientists had already discovered many of the underlying principles. They just needed a different perspective to see how they could be combined. Like humans and Delphians, Marcus asked with a slight smile. Perhaps. Nera's scales flickered with amusement, though I doubt the Council will appreciate the metaphor. They worked together in comfortable silence, documenting the shield modifications. Nera knew this knowledge would change the course of human development, but looking at the colony, at these people who had become more than just subjects of study, she couldn't bring herself to regret her choice. Whatever consequences awaited her, she had learned something vital about both humanity and herself. Sometimes the right path required breaking with tradition, stepping into uncertainty, and trusting in the strength that came from working together. 2 weeks after the solar storm, Nera stood in New Haven's communications center, watching the Delphian transport ship descend through Earth's atmosphere. Its crystalline structure caught the morning sunlight, creating rainbow refractions that danced across the mountain peaks. It was beautiful, she thought, but it no longer felt like home. Are you ready? Marcus asked quietly beside her. No, she admitted, her scales shifting through patterns of anxiety and resolve. But it doesn't matter. The Council will have reviewed my actions by now. They must respond. The transport landed with characteristic Delphian precision on the colony's main pad. Director Chen joined them as they walked to meet it, her presence a reminder of the human support Nera had earned through her choices. 3 Delphian officials emerged from the ship, their scales set in the formal patterns of Council authority. Nera recognized second speaker Myrtle among them, his presence indicating the seriousness with which the Council viewed her actions. Narakathi. Myrtle's harmonic speech rang across the landing pad. You have violated the terms of your exile in the most extreme manner possible. You have shared restricted knowledge with a developing species and interfered directly in their technological advancement. I have, Nera replied, standing straight. I chose to act when lives were at stake. Yes, Myrtle's scales flickered with something that might have been curiosity. We have reviewed the data from the solar storm. Your solution was innovative, combining Delphian principles with human technology in ways we had not considered possible. Director Chen stepped forward. Nera's actions saved our colony. Without her help, we would have lost everything we've built here. So your reports indicated. Myrtle turned his attention to the human leader. We have also reviewed your colony's response to the crisis, the efficiency of your evacuation plans, the adaptability of your people, the way you integrated Nera's knowledge with your existing systems. All of it speaks to capabilities we had not fully appreciated. Nera felt a surge of hope, quickly tempered by caution. The Council's position has always been that humanity is not ready for advanced knowledge. The Council's position, Myrtle said carefully, is evolving. Your exile was meant to show you the primitive nature of human society. Instead, it has shown us something unexpected about both humanity and ourselves. He gestured to the colony around them. This settlement has survived conditions that would challenge even Delphian technology, not through superior science, but through adaptation and cooperation. You, Narakathi, have demonstrated that our peoples can work together in ways we had not imagined possible. What are you saying? Nara asked, her translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of hope and suspicion in her voice. The council proposes a modification to your exile, Myrtle announced. Instead of punishment, we offer you a new role, official liaison between our peoples. You will remain here, studying how humans adapt and implement the knowledge you have already shared, helping us understand when and how to share more. Marcus stepped closer to Nara, his presence steady and supportive. And what does Nara get out of this arrangement? Myrtle's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. Freedom to continue her work here, with fewer restrictions on sharing her knowledge. And he paused significantly, permission to maintain the connection she has clearly formed. Nara felt emotion she couldn't quite name flowing through her scales. Relief, joy, anxiety, hope. The council would trust me with this responsibility. After I defied them. You defied us for reasons we are beginning to understand, Myrtle replied. Perhaps it is time for the Delphian Empire to learn something about adaptation ourselves. Director Chen smiled. It seems humanity isn't the only species capable of growth. The negotiations that followed were complex, setting boundaries for knowledge sharing that both sides could accept. But through it all, Nara felt a growing sense of rightness. This was where she belonged, not fully human, not traditionally Delphian, but something new, a bridge between worlds. That evening, she found herself back in the observation dome with Marcus, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. The same stars she had watched on her first night in exile now held new meaning, new possibility. So, Marcus said, official liaison to humanity. That's quite a promotion from exile. The council adapts in its own way, Nara replied, her scales glowing softly. They recognize that isolation is no longer sustainable. Both our peoples will face challenges that we might better solve together, like combining shield harmonics. Like combining perspectives, she corrected. Your chaos and our order, your adaptability and our knowledge, your heart and our logic. Marcus turned to face her, his expression serious. You know, when you first arrived, I never imagined we'd end up here. You were so Delphian. I still am Delphian, Nara said, her scales rippling with amusement. But perhaps being Delphian can mean more than I once thought. Perhaps we all can be more than what we were taught to be. She looked out at the colony, at the lights coming on in the homes and laboratories, at the greenhouses where human and Delphian agricultural techniques now worked in harmony. This place had changed her, had shown her that strength could come from difference, that progress often required walking new paths. What happens now? Marcus asked softly. Now, Nara replied, her scales glowing with the colors of possibility. We build something new, together. Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance, watching as two species began to learn from each other, to grow beyond their limitations, to find strength in their differences and wisdom in their shared challenges. Nara's exile had ended, but her journey, their journey, was just beginning.